Hello you guys and welcome back. It's been way too long since we've sat down for a video like this. So today I was really feeling like leaning into the kind of big sis advice vibes of my channel sometimes and kind of resurrecting. Back from the spring, if you remember, I launched a video podcast series here on YouTube, and honestly, once we moved, I kind of just stopped prioritizing it for a few months. I didn't really have any ideas. I was just like focusing on moving vlogs for a lot of the summer, and now we're getting back into the swing of things, and I've really missed making these videos, so I hope y'all will forgive me for the little 4 or 5 months of not having one of these. We're back. We are in the new office in a new setup since the last time. So I'll go ahead and link the other videos in this series as cards, as well as down below if you want to go check out the other ones. Today I wanted to talk about how male validation and the male gaze has affected my life, how it's played out since I was decently young and into my 20s and now 30s, and how honestly it's something that I didn't really even think about until probably a few years ago as something that kind of impacted my life, my relationships, dating, my own self-confidence and self-worth. And it's something I kind of have wanted to unpack because maybe some of you guys can relate to this, or maybe you're younger watching this video and you haven't maybe realized that possibly you've been doing some of these things and it hasn't come up for you yet. I'd also love to open up the comment section for any thoughts and any of your own personal lessons having to do with anything in this topic. I know a lot of us women have just experienced these thoughts and behaviors and everything, so would love to open up the comment section if you have anything you'd like to add. Last thing I'll say before I go ahead and get into it is that I would also love to hear from you any ideas you want me to talk about more in this series, because I'm definitely taking requests for this series. So anything that you guys want me to talk about, feel free to leave it down below, or if you see a comment down below of something you want to see, feel free to give it a thumbs up so I can know and add those to my podcast series video ideas list. I thought first I would kind of go back in time and discuss how male validation and male gaze has kind of impacted me personally, and then I thought maybe towards the end of the video I can offer some advice for how I have kind of worked on this in recent years and how you can move away from these behaviors and thoughts of just being obsessed with the male gaze and maybe not even realizing it. Just these thoughts for me and these behaviors and patterns, it really goes back to probably like middle school or something, maybe even before, you know what I mean? We're kind of ingrained from a young age. But just traveling back to middle school time, so for me that was 6th to 8th grade, I definitely remember just starting to want to appeal to guys in what I dressed, how I did my hair, how I spoke, what my interests were, even just like my activities and stuff. And of course it wasn't my only reasons for having interests and wanting to dress cute or whatever it is. That was not my only intention, was like, let's try to impress boys or whatever. But I think it definitely was one of the main draws to a lot of the things that I did. I mean, middle school was just a difficult time, and you're kind of having those first relationships sometimes, or having those first crushes, or maybe your first like hug or kiss with somebody that you like, whatever it is. That's all totally normal and just a part of growing up and being a teenager and everything. But when I got into high school, I found myself really desiring not only for boys to like me. It's so interesting too, because I remember even just wanting boys that I wasn't even interested in necessarily romantically to like me, you know, like even that just felt good and felt flattering. Just going back to high school, I would wear a full face of makeup every single day. I don't remember going to school a single day in high school and not wearing a full face of makeup. Maybe once or twice, maybe like towards the end of senior year, but I don't think I did. I wouldn't go out to see my peers without having a full face of makeup, without doing my hair, without having this whole outfit. I mean, a lot of you guys know that from my old outfits of the week videos. And I think also a big part of that was just a sign of the times. And I'm sure now a lot of high school girls wear makeup to school every day. Like I'm not saying that's like a weird thing, but almost just those feelings of feeling like I had to look my best. I had to try and, like cake all this makeup on myself and eyeshadow and whatever, and dress to like show off certain parts of my body or curves. Of course, we had like a school dress code. Mine was somewhat loose, so I could still wear like tight things. I couldn't wear like really short things, but I honestly still could wear like tight things. And I didn't have these thoughts of like when I was going out and buying these items or like getting dressed in the morning for school, I didn't necessarily have these thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I'm like trying to impress guys, or I'm trying to impress like whoever my crush was at the time. But I do feel like it was just a part of it for me. It was like I wasn't really trying to look good that much for the girls or myself. I think myself was definitely part of it. Like I just always had, beauty and fashion as a huge interest. So that's definitely a part of it. But ultimately, especially in those early years of high school, like when I got my braces off and I was in like 9th and 10th grade, I hadn't had like a real boyfriend yet. I actually never had a real boyfriend all throughout high school, which we'll kind of get into, because I think being I'm gonna use quotes again, late bloomer with guys, like with having my first kiss and having my first relationship, being a late bloomer with all of that stuff, I think that's one of the actual main things that really threw me into these years and years of desiring male attention so much in my early and mid 20s that we'll kind of talk about more. I saw my friends dating guys and having boyfriends and having their first kiss and whatever after that, and I just always felt really behind. I didn't have my first, I had like a kiss, like a spin the bottle dare kiss type thing, I think when I was around 13, but I never counted it as my first kiss because do any of you guys have an experience like that? Like I didn't count my real first kiss until it was like we both wanted to kiss each other, and that didn't happen until I was 17. And I think if I remember, I was at the very end of my junior year of high school, so I was actually like getting towards being 18 in a few months. I just felt like at the time I was comparing myself to all my friends and peers, and I felt like that was so late. And it's interesting because I feel like that's actually probably pretty normal. Everybody's so different, but I just felt so late. I always felt like I was playing catch up. I always felt like guys just didn't like me and desire me in that way. And of course, when you're young and a teenager, you have all these insecurities. Like I had horrible acne. I went on Accutane, I think like my senior year, that helped a lot. But before that, I was just so insecure. That was a big part of the reason I wore so much makeup, is because my skin was just awful at that time. And I really didn't feel that confident. I felt a lot more confident when I had my makeup and my hair and my outfits. And that was why I really prioritized a lot of those things, because it just made me feel so much better about myself. But yeah, I really just didn't have a lot of those, what I felt like was normal, like early dating experiences at all in high school. Like I said, I just felt like such a late bloomer compared to my friends. I felt like all my friends, and I really think like most of my close friends had relationships in high school, and I was one of the only ones that didn't have an official like boyfriend in high school. I definitely had things and talked to a couple guys, but it was nothing like actually serious. I've kind of talked about more of these things over the years on my channel, so I don't need to get into everything today in terms of like even just my first time being physical with a guy, and like I said, having my first kiss and first relationship. It all felt years later than my close friends, and I always just felt this pang of like insecurity because I always felt behind in that way. And I think I wanted it so much more and almost focused on it more because I never had it in terms of like a relationship or a guy liking me back a lot or like really pursuing me, because I didn't have that for so long. I definitely fell into kind of appearing like desperate. I mean, I'll just say it about myself. I think also I used to be kind of a pick-me, which is a little bit hard to admit, but I mean, we didn't know what that term was until a few years ago, like right from the end of high school to my early 20s, of just, that was like my top priority, was basically catching up for being a late bloomer in high school and in my teenagehood. So like when I moved out and I was on my own and I was meeting a lot of new people, I don't have really regrets. I don't look back on those years and be like, oh my gosh, I regret those experiences, or like going on a lot of dates or meeting a lot of guys. I don't regret it, but I can look back now and just see how obsessed I was with wanting every guy that I was relatively interested in to like fall in love with me or something. I definitely was kind of a pick-me at this time. I'm just gonna be totally honest. And I think it's respectable, I guess you could say, to be able to acknowledge something like that about yourself in the past and not just be like, oh no, I was never a pick-me, because I think a lot of us were. It's conditioned in us from a young age, even just going back to like Disney movies, of wanting this knight in shining armor to pick you. Okay, so it's not this like horrible thing. It's actually kind of natural to be that way a lot of the time. You have to actually kind of grow out of that and recognize those behaviors to even move forward. But I'll just admit it, like those first years after high school and in college, I definitely feel like I had a desperate energy. I would kind of go for just most of the guys that gave me attention. Now it's kind of like maybe a little embarrassing or like cringy or icky for me to remember that and admit that, but I know that it's true, and I know that it's just because, like I said, I was trying to make up for lost time or something, like those experiences that I did not have when I was, let's say, like 14 to 17. I almost was like making up for all of that time in those early years after high school. And I also think like that's kind of just normal too. I mean, I'd love to hear from some of you guys that maybe had similar experiences, or maybe a different high school experience and it led you to whatever it led you to. I'd love to, hear from you guys, like I said, and kind of have an open discussion. I can just look back and, like I said, not with regret, but with a different set of a different perspective. I'm 31 now. I turned 31 a week ago. So not that I'm so old and so wise, but it's just so interesting, like remembering yourself at 21 and then now being 31 and having those extra years after your brain is fully developed, which of course my brain wasn't even fully developed at this time, y'all. So you know what? That's another reason to just not have any regrets and just be like, you were doing the best you could. I don't ever talk about topics like this to be like, oh my gosh, like these mistakes affected me so much. They, like I said, in a regretful tone. That's not why I bring things up like this. It's more just kind of as you get older and as you can kind of think on these things and have new terms like we do nowadays to identify your past or present behaviors. It's just kind of interesting to look back at your old patterns, your old self, and be like, I did not realize I was doing that for so long, but I think I was. And that's okay, but we learn and we grow. So going back to getting into my first relationship, because I kind of left that open-ended. When I was 21, that's actually when I had my first relationship. And I just felt like I couldn't stop like saying that and telling people. I was like, I didn't get my first boyfriend until I was 21. Like, oh my gosh, he's my first boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Like, and again, it's like, is that even that weird? Is that even that late? You hear other people's stories and experiences, and I think it felt so late, just again, because you're comparing yourself to like, it just feels later because you don't have it and you're watching other people that have had, like 2 or 3 or 4 relationships that you're close to, and you're just like, well, why isn't it my time? Why not me? Like something must be wrong with me, like boys don't desire me, or whatever it is, like all these different things that you just tell yourself for why you haven't had that experience. And I hate that I even held it on this crazy high pedestal for myself, but I know that I did. It makes you want something so much more when you don't know how it feels to have it, right? So when I did get into my first relationship at 21, again, I don't regret anything at all. Such like a sweet guy. My first boyfriend was like the sweetest person, but also I can look back, and I think this is maybe just a first relationship thing, but I just had that kind of energy of like desperation, and I was so excited that he picked me and I picked him. And I just remember it was like my biggest personality trait for like 6 months or something. We really were not together that long. We were literally together, yeah, like I think less than 6 months. Having a boyfriend, my first boyfriend was, and I think even into my next relationship, honestly, that having a boyfriend, that was like one of my biggest personality traits for years. Again, just going back to feeling like I was behind and catching up. So now it's finally my time, and like sharing so much about it because it was like an achievement for me. I think because I wasn't picked in high school, or I wasn't picked, picked. It's so crazy to even say that, but until essentially I had my first boyfriend, because I wasn't picked until I was like 21 or something, it felt almost addicting finally being picked and finally having someone that really was choosing publicly to want to be with me. And it made everything feel so much more intense. And I have several videos about past relationships, what I've learned. I think most of you guys know that, but if anyone's coming to this video that doesn't really know my channel, and maybe this is like one of the first videos you're seeing, I will link those up here. So if anyone needs to hear anything like that, I always want to share that those are up on my channel, because that's kind of a whole nother topic that we won't get into today. I'll link those down below as well if you want to go watch them after this. So that's a little bit of my past experiences, just to kind of catch you up to future. I know that 98% of you guys probably already know this, but I am engaged now. I've been with my current partner, Jared, for almost 5 years. We are coming up on October 15th for our 5-year anniversary, which is so wild. Everything that I've shared so far in this video is pretty much prior to that relationship, but that is kind of me unpacking male validation and male gaze. Something that I wanted to put on the screen was just this monologue from the book and the movie. I've actually not read the book, but this particular monologue is from the book Gone Girl, and I've only seen the movie, but it's a little bit different, the monologue she does in the movie, and that is the cool girl monologue. So I'm gonna put it up on the screen. If anyone wants to pause it and read it, feel free. I'm not gonna read the whole thing because I'll probably get demonetized. And it's long, so I don't need to read the whole thing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are probably familiar with this monologue. It's pretty iconic and famous, but I just remember the first time I heard this, and I've watched that movie several times. I really enjoy that movie. I think it's just beautifully done. It kind of shocks you to read it. I think so many of us can relate to trying to be the cool girl, the chill girl, the girl that's not gonna like raise her voice and be loud and bring up things all the time that might have bugged her that you said, and kind of just existing for the man to make his life easier, So that's kind of essentially what this monologue is about, and I just wanted to bring it into this video because I think it's just so well written. It's better than anything I could ever say about this topic. I just love it, and I think it kind of goes into the next thing I want to talk about, which is, I'm gonna say guys because that's who I've always dated, but of course you could apply it to whoever. Let's just say other people trying to dim your shine, trying to control aspects of your personality, trying to not get you to wear something that you want to wear or go somewhere that you want to go, have a certain interest, or even just expressing their preferences about you and about your personality to you. And I have definitely had that experience many times. One of the ones I wanted to bring up because it really stuck with me is an experience I had maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, right before dating Jared. I kind of had like a thing with this guy. I kind of liked him more than I would like to admit at the time. That's just how I am. Like when I'm talking to someone every day, I just like, I want to be with them and I don't need to apologize for that. You know what I mean? I actually made a whole podcast episode about this because I had my old podcast at the time. So I will put that episode on screen and link it down below because I don't even remember the full exact story. Pretty much he said something to me along the lines of like, you're too much. I don't remember exactly how it was worded. That was the first time I remember hearing that from someone that I liked. It played on so many insecurities because I knew already that I liked him more than he liked me. This was the type of guy that breadcrumbed you, and I would like hold on to those good moments and those highlights. And looking back, I'm so glad that he didn't want to date me because I just don't think it would have been good for me or worked out, honestly. So, you know, you can look back and be like, okay, I'm actually like really grateful that that person showed me their true colors, because the man or the person that I'm going to be with or you're going to be with would never say something like that to you in the first place. They wouldn't say something, whether it's you're too much or you're this or you're that. They're not going to say something like that about who you are at your core. Like that was a personal insult to my core because I do have a big personality. I just think hearing that from him and really kind of dissecting that over those next few days after he said that and it hurt me was just so eye-opening for me. He was telling me how he really felt like my personality was too much for him. I wasn't the cool, chill, reserved girl that he wanted, that was the type of woman he wanted, you know what I mean? And looking back years later, it's like, oh my God, why did I care about a random man's thoughts about me or my personality? Like, embarrassing that I even cared so much, but it was because I liked him. It was literally the core of me. He said, you're too much, you know what I mean? And so I always just remembered that, and I kind of went in the complete opposite direction of it. And I still believe this to this day. If somebody tells you that you're too much in any aspect, you're being too much, you're too much right now, whatever it is, it actually is one of those like reversed things where it's actually about them and they're actually just not enough. If anyone has ever been told that, just know that you are not too much for the right person. You are not too much in general for other people. That person is just not enough for you. What you deserve, what you need, what you desire. So that's my biggest learning lesson from that. Focusing so much on what others think of you, whether it is, you know, the male gaze or even just being obsessed with what other people think about you and are saying about you, it distracts you so much from your life, prevents you from focusing on you and your goals, and you have all of these thoughts all the time. Another thing about being obsessed with guys looking at you and what they think about you and being attractive to them is it actually makes you so competitive with other women because you're like competing to be, I don't know, the most attractive, the funniest, the coolest girl out of the group or out of whoever he's dating. You know, you hear that expression, not a girl's girl. And those are, I think we can all agree, we know those girls that are not a girl's girl. And those are the girls that are competitive with you. Again, like the pick me energy, like always just like taking the guy or talking to the guy more, prioritizing him more, like only laughing at the things he says, only being interested in his conversations. So I definitely do not have all the answers, but I do have a few tips for how to rewire a little bit, how to start to rewire these thoughts and refocus on you instead of being focused on men. I'm going to share those now, and then I'm going to take a couple of quick questions from my patrons to end off this video. I think the biggest thing is just being able to acknowledge that we're doing this, or that we're sometimes just going to do it and not even realize it. You know what I mean? Even just me making this video is a lot of that, just having these reflections. I think that's such a huge part of it, is even being aware in the first place. And you don't have to label it as like, oh my gosh, like that's embarrassing, or why am I doing that, or like trying to change your thoughts and your patterns overnight. It's more just even acknowledging that this is something that's so ingrained in us. It's so hard to shift. If you do notice a thought popping up, or something you did, maybe like I have a lot of those moments where I think back on something after it happened and I'm like, ugh, why did I do that? Or like, why did I act that way? So if you have one of those come up, or even just like you notice yourself exhibiting a behavior, like maybe, I don't know, some man's like mansplaining something to you out in public and you're like, thank you so much, it was so, you know, like kind of like praising him for explaining it to you or whatever, and then you're thinking back and you're like, ugh, why did I do that? Like, I mean, I don't know, you don't want to be rude, right? But it's just like, okay, so if you have something like that you can acknowledge that came up for you, if and when it comes up, acknowledge it. Like I said, that's the biggest thing, is recognizing it and acknowledging it. Focus back on you in the present, and not how is this person, how is this man thinking of me, or thinking of my responses, or thinking of how I look, or whatever it is. Just focus it back on you and just your energy being for you, and not for him to judge or have thoughts about. Always, but especially now, we need women to be loud. We need women to be out there speaking their minds, speaking freely, speaking up. We need women to take up space, to not shrink themselves physically or emotionally, or hold back what they're gonna say for fear of, I don't know, offending a man, or fear of a man being like, why is she talking about that? You know, whatever it is, we need more, not holding back, and not being obsessed with being seen as the cool girl, which again is something that I can definitely relate to. I've done it before. Focus on being your best self, not your most attractive self. It's not going to get you farther with someone. Just looks and attractiveness and then thinking you're hot, it's really not going to get you farther than probably a couple dates. At a certain point, you can't hold up this level of fakeness or just non-realistic life anymore, right? If you present this version of yourself that is only like attractive, and you're always put together, you always, you know, there's not a hair out of place, you're always in a great mood, you're always just, you know what I mean. It's not real, and nobody can be that all the time, and it's not going to last, because again, it's not real life. And if you feel like you're in a spiral where you're just not feeling that confident, and you're just overthinking, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you've been single for a really long time and you're starting to question things, you're starting to just not feel as good about yourself, I challenge you, instead of leaning into what random men or people think about you, and people that you go on like 1 or 2 dates with that don't actually know you, and it's just so surface level most of the time, especially on dating apps. I challenge you to remind yourself of your accomplishments, the things about yourself that you love, from your personality. You know, maybe you're a great friend, maybe you're really funny, maybe you're super caring, maybe you have, you know, these really cool talents that a lot of people don't know how to do. Maybe you're killing it at your job, maybe you just got a promotion, maybe you just got accepted into like a master's program or law school, or whatever it is. Maybe you just put a down payment on a car or a house, or whatever it is. Remind yourself of all of these things, even just as simple as like being a nice, good person. Remind yourself of all of that stuff that you are, without anybody else's thoughts or judgment or opinions of you, without anyone else having any say in all that you have done. Again, if you are just in a phase where you're just kind of struggling with this, or you're struggling with your self-worth, I challenge you to get in touch with your purpose and think more about what that is, or get more aligned with what you already know it is, your own goals, and having that like boss bitch, girl boss life. That's always what really helped me when I was frustrated, either in a breakup or with dating, was throwing myself into my goals and my passions. It's actually the thing that led me into starting my old podcast. That was so like cathartic and necessary for me at the time, and I know a lot of you guys really appreciated just like the vulnerability and sharing all of that stuff. And other than that, it doesn't have to all be productive. It can just be enjoying spending time with yourself and really like tapping into wanting to take care of yourself, the self-care, honoring your inner child. I will just kind of leave it with that it takes time. It takes actually a lot of time to shift your learned behaviors, things that we didn't even realize we may have been doing from a young age, right? Like it took me probably until my late 20s to even realize how things played out in my life because of dating and, again, being a late bloomer, as I mentioned, all that stuff, how it kind of led me into my 20s. Don't be upset with yourself for doing things that just come naturally and that are ingrained is kind of what I would leave it with. I think hopefully it's going to get easier as we get older, as we just find ourselves more. I mean, that's what everybody says, and what I agree with up to this point so far is that every single year I feel more myself. I feel more that I don't care about what other people think about me, and I do think that it gets easier as more time passes to just be so much more comfortable and in love with you and know what you deserve, know your worth. So I'll leave it kind of with that. So to end out this video, I'm going to answer one question from my Patreon. Part of the VIP podcast tier on my Patreon is actually being able to ask questions for this series. So it is my most affordable tier. It's $3 a month. You get to access these video episodes ad-free and early, and you also get to access my mini podcast, which is just like an audio-only podcast on my Patreon. That is the only place that I post my current podcast episodes. So if you do feel like joining us in that tier or on the Patreon in general, I'll have that linked as the first link in the description box down below. The other questions I did get, I kind of already touched on in the topics of this video. So this one is from Kelly. How do you find balance with making sure you stay true to yourself, but also being in a relationship? So I thought this one could kind of be good to end off the video because I haven't really talked about that. I haven't really talked about, since I've been in a very long-term relationship and now, going to be getting married in the future. I would say that it is really important to me. I've always been a pretty independent person. My relationship with Jared, it's just always important to me to have my independence. Once you are living with someone long-term, coming up on 4 years now, but it can be more difficult to, even just like carve out that time for just you, because of course, like most of my time is, for the most part, spent at home. So I think it's really important to both of us to have our own separate interests that we go off and do with friends. So I know that Jared definitely has his. One of mine that I really enjoy and I want to even prioritize it more is like girls trips and just going on, like traveling by myself. As well as going out and doing things with my girlfriends. Another one is just like even having my part-time job and having something that, I'm gone pretty much all day. I'm gone for several hours and I'm working on a passion that I have, and that's really important to me, that my partner really doesn't have any interest in the same thing. Or, sometimes I just get into these moods where I'm like, I want to just go and like organize little parts of the house. It's nice to have those things that you can almost kind of turn your brain off and just do because you enjoy it. You enjoy the process of it. So I think that organizing and also like cooking is definitely one of those for me. I mean, we do cook together most of the time, but sometimes one of us will just take over. I'm more into like baking, and I'm also really into like decorating the house and little home decor things. So those are kind of some of the things that I really like to do that Jared kind of has no interest in. I think it is important to always have, a few things that you prioritize that you really enjoy doing just on your own. And I always try to remind myself too that any like time apart is always, I think it's really beneficial to have time apart, even just going on, if I go somewhere for like 4 or 5 days and see like my sister or like do a girls trip or something, I know that like I'm gonna be missing Jared. I know I'm gonna have a fun time, but I'm also going to miss my partner. And I think missing each other is one of those things that's like really important, to really give yourself that time where you can actually be away for a day or a weekend or a whole week, whatever it looks like for you, where you can be away from your person and actually miss them and be so excited to come back together and see them again. And it just kind of re-sparks the love and the feelings and all the good stuff that you have back at home. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this particular topic. And again, I would love to hear from you about any topic ideas that you do have for future episodes in this series. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.